When you think about it, the culture of any city, it lies within its people, its places, and of course, its food.
Those are topics that we explore in a new book that's out today. It's called The Dear Dara's Writings on Local Characters and Memorable Places. And we are happy to be joined by six-time James Beard food writer Dara Moskowitz Grumdahl. Oh, it's so great to have you.
I'm so happy to be here.
You haven't been back in the studio since COVID.
No, I used to do this all the time.
Wow.
And look at me. Here I am. We're back, baby.
Here I am, and I have a book. Yeah, okay, tell us about it.
Well, I moved to Minneapolis, St. Paul in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I started taking notes.
Right.
And then I started typing and typing and typing. And I made a whole life. And eventually I was like, holy moly, this stuff is vanishing. Like so many magazines that I've written for. Poof.
Yeah, right.
Gourmet magazine, gone. City Pages, gone.
Right.
You know, and so I was just like, well, I better put this in a way that someone can put it on a shelf. So in a million years, people can be like, what was it like to live in the 2000s and 90s in Minnesota? And we will know. We will know the answer.
Let me ask you this: what can people experience when they read this book? Give us a preview, a taste, if you will.
All right. So there's 5.7 million people in the state of Minnesota. And there's been one girl taking notes in the corner this whole time. And so it's kind of like a yearbook. It's kind of like this is your life if you've been living here for the last 25 years, and you're going to read it and you're going to be like, oh my God, we did used to have that crazy situation. Like, oh, we did have, Aquatennial queens who were living during World War II and were sharing their stories in the 90s. Like, this is part of who we are. And I think it's going to give you that kind of yearbook feeling of like, I remember this and I remember that. And then I think for a lot of people that live in the Twin Cities, like I'm one of the people in the neighborhood. You go down the Sesame Street and you're like, there's the garbage guy and there's the mail lady and there's you and there's you, AJ, and there's me. And then they're just like, oh, what's behind the curtain? What does that lady do? How does she do it and why does she do it? And it's all in here.
Yeah, I think there's so many people that when you think of food writer in Minneapolis for 25 years, you are the name that comes up. And I imagine the changes that you have seen over these past 25 years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. So I've been at Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine for almost 12 years now. Yeah. And that's, people still come up to me and they're like, I remember City Pages. Like, well, guess what? My Minneapolis St. Paul tenure just eclipsed.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, I've now been there. And, what I have seen since I've been here is that people are very interesting. They keep it very buttoned down. You have to really just like pepper them with questions again and again and again. I talk in here about how I will do 3-4 hour interviews routinely, and you guys don't have the luxury, but I can just throw all the extra stuff. And then when you talk to someone for that long, you get their hopes and their dreams, you get their secrets, you get a way of understanding the world. Like, think about how many people have thought, like, oh, why didn't I spend 100 hours interviewing grandma? Like, I want to know everything that she had to say. And I have done that for not my grandma, but for a lot of people just in the world here. That Sesame Street thing, these are the people in my neighborhood, that has ruled my life.
That's a good way to think about it, though. So, okay, let me ask you this. As a food critic, is there a favorite era of time of restaurants that you remember, like, oh my gosh, there was this span of restaurant time from 2000 to 2004. This time was phenomenal when it came to the Minneapolis restaurant scene.
Well, first of all, I'm very ride or die in the Minneapolis food scene. Like, we have one of the best food scenes in the country. It's comparable to New York, no matter what anyone else tells you. It's comparable to Los Angeles, and you could actually get into the restaurants. And so that's like a whole different thing. You don't need to be Leonardo DiCaprio to get into, Meritage. You can just go. And so that said, I have a little bit of nostalgia for the 90s because the rents were so low and everybody was just like, well, I just get this, I can just get this space and it costs nothing and my 3 best friends, and now we have a restaurant called Ariga. And rents have matured.
Yeah.
And
Putting it lightly, yeah.
yeah. And so I wish that our governments could do something about these vacant storefronts. It's like, you know, people are getting tax benefits from sitting on empty storefronts, and I think that they should not get tax benefits from sitting on empty storefronts. I think the market should dictate the prices of things just like it used to in the olden times. And so that's what I would, if we had that, I think this place would be a paradise. And I think it's pretty much close to a paradise right now. So.
Let me ask you, because you've been doing this writing for 25 years and you can see it in your book, do you think your writing has evolved or changed over time? When you go back and look at the stuff from 25 years ago, are you like, what? I wrote that?
I wrote this?
Or do I even remember this?
Well, I put a bunch of the real struggle kind of stuff in here. When I was at City Pages, we had this wonderful editor, Monica Bauerlein. She runs Mother Jones in San Francisco now. She's like incredible. Anyway, I would send a story and she would send it back. There are no transitions. I was like, what is a transition? And I sat there just like, how could this work? Like, I don't know how to do this. And when I thank God I had just piles and piles in the basement of paper, and that's where a lot of the stuff came from.
Really? It wasn't even on a computer?
Oh, no, I had to retype
my
gosh.
Old school.
Pack rat for the win.
Yeah,
you know, so I always wanted to keep that stuff, and I just had it in these, hipster wicker baskets, just, that I got at thrift stores, just piled up in the basement. And so I went through it, and yes, I mean, there's only maybe 5 or 6 pieces from the 90s in here, because some of it makes me a little like, oh, like that's not, that's not quite it. But,
okay, let me ask you this. The restaurant scene here now, where is it going? Do you like the direction in which it's heading?
I think that like everybody, I've noticed, prices go up and up and up, right? And I have been talking to restaurateurs, and they just talk about how the economy is not what it was. In the 90s, nobody had health insurance. We just rolled around hoping not to get hit by a bus. That was our lives. So, but now it's better that everyone has health insurance, but it's so much more expensive. And so, and you know what it's like. Rent is more expensive. Electricity is more expensive. Every single thing. And so, in order for a restaurant to stay open, a sandwich is now $18.
It has to be, yeah.
And so how do I feel about that? I feel so conflicted, because I want restaurants to stay in business. It's just like, oh, you should just lose money and go bankrupt so that I can have a tasty burger I can afford. But on the other hand, it's like, oh, this is not working. Like, this is this systemic problem. So do I feel happy about it? It's very, I have like 7 feelings, and they're all
conflicted emotions.
Yeah,
I understand.
Go buy the book. If you love Minneapolis history, if you love food, if you just love good writing, go check it out. It is available today.